Hey, welcome back, Truth Seekers. I wanted to talk about the Afghanistan war supposedly being wrapped up this week. That was a news story we were given in between everything else. And it's the longest war this country's ever been involved in to date. For me personally, it started when I was 18. I am now 31. So my entire decade of being a 20 something. It's true for everyone else. We all lost a decade to this war. I mean, it's amazing to think about. But what I find really curious is that they say in all this time we spent $1 trillion, and that is an incredible amount of money, $1 trillion. But what's more incredible than that is that on the day before September 11th, 2001, when all this began, Donald Rumsfeld announced that the United States couldn't account for more than $2 trillion for the years 99 and 2000. So essentially, they couldn't account for dollars in spending for each of those respective years. You have to ask yourself, if a war that lasted over 13 years cost $1 trillion, then what could they have possibly spent money on within a year's time that costed that same amount of money that they couldn't account for? So let's just listen to this first.
Pentagon, the day before 9/11, Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld declared war, not on foreign terrorists.
The adversary is closer to home. It's the Pentagon bureaucracy.
Did you see the date, True Seeker? September 10th, 2001, the day before the day.
He said money wasted by the military poses a serious threat.
In fact, it could be said that it's a matter of life and death.
Rumsfeld promised change, but the next day, the world changed. And in the rush to fund the war on terrorism, the war on waste seems to have been forgotten.
My '03 budget calls for more than $48 billion in new defense spending.
More money for the Pentagon when its own auditors admit the military cannot account.
Side note, did you guys see how the 43rd president just struggled to get through that sentence? For all of you who really hate Obama, I know you guys were sleeping hardcore during the Bush years because that man could not even speak.
For 25% of what it already spends.
According to some estimates, we cannot track $2.3 trillion in transactions.
2.3 trillion with a T. That's $8,000 for every man, woman, and child in America. To understand how the Pentagon can lose track of trillions, consider the case of one military accountant who tried to find out what happened to a mere 300 million.
We know it's gone, but we don't know what they spent it on.
Jim Minery, a former Marine turned whistleblower, is risking his job by speaking out for the first time about the millions he noticed were missing from one defense agency's balance sheets. Minery tried to follow the money trail, even crisscrossing the country looking for records.
The director looked at me and he says, "Why do you care about this stuff?" It took me aback, you know. My supervisor asked me why I care about doing a good job. So
he was reassigned and says officials then covered up the problem by just writing it off.
They got to cover it up. That's where the corruption comes in. They've got to cover up the fact that they can't do the job.
The Pentagon's Inspector General partially substantiated several of Minery's allegations, but could not prove officials tried to manipulate the financial statements. 20 years ago, Pentagon employee Franklin C. Spinney made headlines exposing what he calls the accounting games. He's still there, and although he does not speak for the Pentagon, he believes the problem has gotten worse.
Those numbers are pie in the sky. The books are cooked routinely year after year after year.
Retired Vice Admiral Jack Shanahan commanded the Navy's Second Fleet the first time Donald Rumsfeld served as Defense Secretary.
With good financial oversight, we could find $48 billion in loose change in that building without having to hit the taxpayer.
In the 2.5 minutes since this report began, the Pentagon has spent nearly $2 million, and it may never know where 25% of those tax dollars went. In Los Angeles, I'm Vince Gonzalez for Eye on America.
So there it was, True Seeker. A story from the day before September 11th. And really, looking back, I mean, I even wonder if anything in that story is true. Perhaps this is just part of what they do to us mentally. Can you imagine if you were paying attention to the news, you'd heard the day before your government couldn't account for all this money? The Pentagon was going to drastically reduce its budget, become more transparent, and then boom, the next day, September 11th happens? Talk about perfect timing for the Pentagon. Let's not forget the Pentagon of 77 feet was hit by Flight 77 on 9/11. It's also on the 77th meridian, known as the American meridian. True Seeker, this number, a trillion, is so huge. Let me show you something. This right here is the day I was born, and this here is today. This website, if you punch in dates, it will give you times and increments, including seconds. So from the day I was born until today is not even a billion seconds. Yours truly has not lived a billion seconds yet. I'm getting close. But the point is a trillion is a billion times 1,000. So in other words, I would have to be over 1,000 times as old to reach a trillion seconds. And imagine that. If I spent $1 a second, I would have to live to be almost 32,000 years old to spend $1 a second to reach a trillion. You'd have to spend $1 per second for 32,000 years to reach $1 trillion. And we were talking about 2.3 missing trillion in 2 years. Think of it, Truth Seeker. How could that kind of money be unaccounted for? How is that anywhere near possible? If it's true, it shows you a giant heist is at work. A major heist, way bigger than what we would ever know. You know, when you really think about True Seeker, think about all the people that live in this country and work and grind. And at the end of the day, all of us who are working are paying between a third and half of our wages away in taxes a year, if not more. You start looking at the other fees that we have to pay that other nations' taxes cover, you can consider those taxes as well. After you do that, almost all of our wages go to taxes. Think about that, a giant nation having all their wealth sucked up from all their labor annually and getting blown like this. 2.3 trillion on something that can't even be accounted for. It's maddening, Truth Seeker. You know, right after 9/11, I saw this movie right here. I did a little post on this. It's called Network. If you haven't seen it, it's one of the greatest movies ever. This is where we got to get, Truth Seeker. We got to get right here to the Howard Beale level. Let's close out with this.
Things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad. It's a depression. Everybody's out of work or scared of losing their job. The dollar buys a nickel's worth. Banks are going bust. Shopkeepers keep a gun under the counter. Punks are running wild in the street, and there's nobody anywhere who seems to know what to do, and there's no end to it. We know the air is unfit to breathe, and our food is unfit to eat. We sit watching our TVs while some local newscaster tells us that today we had 15 homicides and 63 violent crimes, as if that's the way it's supposed to be. We know things are bad, worse than bad. They're crazy. It's like everything everywhere is going crazy, so we don't go out anymore. We sit in the house, and slowly the world we're living in is getting smaller, and all we say is, please, at least leave us alone in our living rooms. Let me have my toaster and my TV and my steel-belted radios, and I won't say anything. Just leave us alone. Well, I'm not going to leave you alone. I want you to get mad. I don't want you to protest. I don't want you to riot. I don't want you to write to your congressman because I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the Russians and the crime in the street. All I know is that first, you've got to get mad. You've got to say, I'm a human being. God damn it. My life has value.
Hey, I don't want to ruin the scene, Truth Seeker, but what he's just said is so true. And you know, so many people in our society, they think, you know, it seems like they think all their life is worth is the collection of material goods. It's enough for them to go out and grind just for the sake of material rewards, saving for that car, that television, that video game, those clothes, that whatever. I don't get it, Truth Seeker. I figured out all that stuff was so empty so long ago. I don't know how other people don't do it. I don't know how so many people are fooled by these illusions. To me, it seems that they must really value their life as nothing. They must think their life has no worth. And I think that's why those words were so important that he just said, because our lives do have value, and we need to realize that. And that value is not in collecting material garbage. That is not the value. That's the slavery.
I want you to get up now. I want all of you to get up out of your chairs. I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell, I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore. I want you to get up right now. Get up, go to your windows, open them, and stick your head out and yell, I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore. Things have got to change.
How many stations does this go out
You've got to
by?
get mad.
67.
I know it goes to Louisville and Atlanta. I'm not going to take this anymore. Then we'll figure out what to do about the depression and the inflation and the oil crisis. But first, get up out of your chairs, open the window, stick your head out and yell, and say, I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
Who are you talking to, Herb?
CGG Atlanta.
Are they yelling in Atlanta, Herb?
Are they yelling in Atlanta, Ted? But first, you've got to get mad. You've got to say, I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
They're yelling in Baton Rouge.
Get up out of your chair.
Son of a bitch! We struck the mother load!
Stick your head out of the window, open it, then stick your head out and keep yelling and yell, I'm as mad as hell. I'm not going to take this anymore. Just get up from your chairs right now. Go to
Where
the
you
window.
going?
All right, Truth Seeker. If you haven't seen this movie before, what you should know is Howard Beale, the man on the TV. He's supposed to be one of the major news anchors for the United States, but he's in the middle of going through a personal meltdown, and now his television station is experimenting with him because they're finding out he's getting ratings. So anyway, right here, what's about to happen is something we really all need to do one day.
Let's see if anybody's
Go to the
yelling.
window, open it, and stick your head out and yell and keep yelling. I'm mad as hell. I'm not going to take this anymore. I'm mad as hell! I'm not gonna take it anymore! I'm not gonna take it anymore! I'm mad as hell! I'm mad as hell! I'm not gonna take this anymore! I'm mad as hell! I'm mad as hell! I'm mad as hell! I'm mad as hell! I'm not going to take this! I am mad as hell! I'm not gonna take this anymore!
All right, Truth Seekers, you guys get the point. We really do need to do something like that as a people. That is how we need to organize with this electronic media, these cell phones, this Facebook. We can connect like a grid so quick, like a nervous system. The word nervous has a Pythagorean gematria of 33, and I feel like we, humanity, are a broken up nervous system right now. But we need to get back in alignment, and we need to start functioning together. For all my fellow truth seekers out there who post videos, I see a lot of you guys and you're not willing to collaborate with anybody. It's like you think you're going to save the world by yourself. That is never going to happen. We have to work together, we have to enlighten each other, and we need to organize like this. It could be done. Can you imagine if every street people were out saying, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take this anymore, and they actually meant it? It's what needs to be done, Truth Seeker. If we don't, they're going to take us off the edge. All right, until next time.